Let's begin with the coral knot stitch. I've got a knot in the end of my thread and I'm going to start on this petal here, but you could start on any that are at the front. Don't start on the ones behind here. And I'm going to start by going into a line that I know is going to get covered with a couple of little stitches on the line. With this fabric, I'm not using a waste away knot because I think the marks will show, but with some fabrics like linen you could do that if you prefer. So these little stitches here are on the line and they're going to get covered up. So I can now cut off my knot and that's not going to come out. Now for coral knot stitch, if you're right-handed, you will stitch from right to left. If you're left-handed, you'll stitch from left to right, and I will demonstrate for left-handers in a moment. Now we're going to do a close coral knot stitch, and if you're inexperienced on coral knot stitch, I'd suggest that you have a practice hoop and have a go at the stitch first. I did include this stitch in my stitch wheel project, so you could have a look at that video as well. But lay your thread in the direction of the line that you're going to cover. So we're doing this petal here, and then take your needle down quite close to the top, also on the line. Don't pull the thread all the way through. And then we're going to come up the other side of that thread. Be careful not to pierce it, and take your thread through. And that forms your first knot. Now I'm going to try and do these stitches almost next to each other. I think that's going to look quite nice for this project. So take a stitch and come up the other side of that thread, and you can go a little bit further down. Don't come up through the same hole, you will just get a knot in your thread. So lay it down, take your needle over the thread and then come up underneath it, and I'm trying to do them almost next to each other, and you can see that I've covered my starting stitches. So I'm going down on the line, holding that loop with both hands so it doesn't go out of shape or it doesn't get twisted, and I'm coming up the other side of that original thread, again on the line but not through the same hole, and I'm actually going to come a little bit further down, so not parallel, because I think this stitch actually for a change looks quite nice if it's a little bit diagonal. So lay it in the direction of the line, take your needle down on the line, pull through, keep hold of those threads, and then come up through the loop the other side of that thread, not through the same hole that you started with. Now it doesn't matter if you don't cover the lines because they're going to come out. So if you don't like the shape of the petal or you decide to do something different, that's absolutely fine. Now I'm just going to carry on to the tip so that you can see what happens when you get to the tip. Now at the tip, I'm going to achieve a knot. So you finish at the tip with a knot. And now I'm going to turn my work round so that I'm stitching from right to left again and not left to right. You can actually do this stitch either way, but I think it's more natural for a right-hander to be stitching right to left. So it's turned round now and literally you just start again. So put your thread in the direction of travel, direction of the line, and do your first stitch like that. I will return when we get to the bottom and show you how to finish. Okay, I've done my last knot, and all you do is go down into the fabric, and now I'm going to finish off on the back through my stitches and cut off, and I'll just show you that. You won't have very much on the back at the moment to finish off, but try to just weave through your stitches a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. And then cut off. I'm going to show left-handers how to start now. Left-handers will stitch from left to right, and so you can start here, for example. I've done my little starting stitches up here, and lay your thread in the direction of travel and take a stitch at the top of that thread, and then come up through the loop a little bit further down, not through the same hole, and then you get this knot. And then again, take a stitch down, keep hold of that loop and come up a little bit further down on the other side of that thread there, like that. And so on. I'm just going to show right-handers how to start again so that you don't have to scroll back. And I'm doing this one here, so we're going to take it all the way to here. These are my starting stitches, and lay your thread in the direction of travel, take a stitch down on top of that thread, keep hold of the thread so it doesn't go all the way through, and then come up just below on the other side of it. So take a stitch down keep hold of that thread and come up just a bit further down that line. Be very careful not to pierce the thread as you come up through. So you want good light for this work if you're doing it in white. And so on. And now you can work the rest of the petals in the same way, but don't do the ones that are right at the back. So don't do this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one. So the ones in the foreground. We're going to do the ones at the back in stem stitch. If you do prefer to use the coral knot stitch, that's fine, but initially just do the ones in the foreground. I'm going to do those now, and so if you scroll forward you can see what that looks like.